What if the constant sense of restlessness you feel is not a personal flaw, but a structural feature of life itself? What if the anxiety, dissatisfaction, and quiet frustration that accompany even your best moments are not signs that something is wrong with you, but signs that you are deeply human? Arthur Schopenhauer invites us to consider a disturbing yet liberating possibility, that suffering is not an accident of existence, but its very foundation. In a world obsessed with motivation, ambition, and endless improvement, Schopenhauer offers something radically different, not hope in the usual sense, but clarity. And clarity, when honestly embraced, can be far more calming than false optimism. In this video, you will explore how Schopenhauer's philosophy helps us loosen the grip of desire, reduce inner conflict, and move toward a quieter, more sustainable form of peace. Arthur Schopenhauer was born in 1788 in Danzig, into a world already marked by instability and change. His father was a successful merchant, deeply pessimistic, restless, and emotionally distant. His mother, Johanna, was a lively intellectual, a novelist who hosted salons and enjoyed social recognition. The tension between these two figures, one withdrawn and tormented, the other outward-facing and ambitious, created an emotional fracture that would shape Schopenhauer's entire worldview. His father's suicide left an indelible scar, reinforcing the idea that life does not guarantee meaning or justice. Unlike philosophers who sought comfort in religion, progress, or historical destiny, Schopenhauer grew suspicious of all narratives that promised redemption through effort alone. From early on, Schopenhauer was drawn to solitude. He distrusted crowds, social ambition, and the noise of public life. While others pursued academic recognition, Schopenhauer pursued intellectual independence. His relationship with the academic world was strained. He openly despised Hegel, whose popularity he viewed as proof that comforting illusions are more attractive than uncomfortable truths. Schopenhauer's isolation was not merely social, it was philosophical. He stood apart because he refused to flatter human hopes. And yet, paradoxically, this refusal makes his work deeply compassionate. He does not judge suffering, he explains it. At the heart of Schopenhauer's philosophy lies the concept of the will. This will is not conscious, moral, or intelligent. It is blind striving, the raw impulse behind all desire, ambition, reproduction, and survival. Every organism, every human being is an expression of this will. And because the will is endless, satisfaction is always temporary. Desire creates lack. Fulfillment creates boredom. And boredom, in turn, gives rise to new desire. Life becomes a pendulum swinging endlessly between pain and emptiness. This is not a cynical observation. It is a phenomenological one. Look closely at your own experience, and you may recognize this rhythm immediately. What makes this insight so powerful is that it removes the illusion that happiness can be permanently achieved through external success. Money, recognition, relationships, achievements, these may bring moments of pleasure, but they cannot silence the will. The mistake modern culture makes is treating desire as a problem to be solved rather than a condition to be understood. Schopenhauer teaches us that as long as we are governed by unchecked desire, peace will remain elusive. Not because we are weak, but because the structure of wanting itself guarantees dissatisfaction. This realization can initially feel heavy, even depressing, but Schopenhauer does not leave us there. Once the mechanism of suffering is understood, a new question emerges. If desire is inevitable, can our relationship to desire change? Can we live without being constantly pulled forward by craving and backward by regret? Schopenhauer believed that wisdom lies not in fulfilling every desire, but in weakening its hold on the mind. This is where his philosophy begins to resemble a form of psychological liberation rather than despair. One of Schopenhauer's most enduring contributions is his emphasis on the inner life. He argues that a person's happiness depends far more on who they are than on what they possess. External conditions fluctuate. Inner qualities endure. A calm, reflective mind can find contentment even in modest circumstances, while a restless mind remains dissatisfied even in abundance. This idea runs counter to modern consumer culture, which encourages constant acquisition. Schopenhauer instead invites us to cultivate inner richness through thought, observation, and self-restraint. Detachment plays a central role in this cultivation. Detachment does not mean suppressing emotions or withdrawing from life entirely. It means observing desires without immediately identifying with them. When you feel the urge to compare yourself to others, to seek validation, to chase the next goal, Schopenhauer encourages you to pause and observe the impulse itself. In that pause, a small space of freedom opens. You are no longer fully possessed by the will. You become a witness rather than a servant. Schopenhauer believed that certain experiences temporarily suspend the will altogether. One of the most important of these is aesthetic contemplation. When you are deeply absorbed in music, art, or the beauty of nature, your usual concerns fade into the background. You forget yourself. You forget your goals, fears, and personal narrative. In these moments, the will falls silent. You experience a form of peace that is not dependent on achievement. This is why Schopenhauer placed such high value on music. It speaks directly to the structure of existence without passing through desire. Another crucial dimension of Schopenhauer's philosophy is compassion. If all beings are driven by the same blind will, then suffering is universal. This recognition dissolves moral superiority. Compassion arises not from obligation but from understanding. When you see another person struggle, you recognize the same forces at work within yourself. In this sense, compassion becomes a form of wisdom. It softens the harsh edges of existence and reduces the cruelty born of ignorance. Schopenhauer was deeply critical of optimism. He believed that false hope intensifies suffering by creating expectations reality cannot fulfill. Instead, he advocated for clear-eyed acceptance. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It means aligning expectations with reality. When you stop demanding that life be fair, exciting, or meaningful at all times, you suffer less when it inevitably falls short. This shift alone can dramatically reduce inner tension. Applied to daily life, Schopenhauer's philosophy suggests a radical reorientation. Instead of asking how to maximize pleasure, ask how to minimize unnecessary suffering. Instead of chasing happiness, cultivate tranquility. Simplify not only your environment but your mental habits. Reduce comparison. Limit stimulation. Learn to enjoy silence. These practices do not make life dull. They make it sustainable. Schopenhauer once wrote that solitude is the fate of all great minds. While this may sound elitist, its deeper meaning is psychological. Solitude allows the mind to detach from the constant feedback loop of desire and validation. In solitude, you encounter yourself without distraction. This encounter can be uncomfortable, but it is also clarifying. It reveals which desires are truly yours and which have been borrowed from the world around you. As we come toward the end of this reflection, consider this carefully. How much of your exhaustion comes not from what you do, but from what you want? How many of your frustrations arise not from lack, but from expectation? And what would change if you allowed life to be imperfect without constantly resisting it? Schopenhauer does not offer a glamorous vision of existence. He offers a realistic one. And in that realism lies a quiet kind of mercy. When you stop fighting the nature of desire, when you stop demanding permanent happiness, something unexpected happens. The noise inside you begins to soften. The pressure eases. Life does not become perfect, but it becomes lighter. Share in the comments which idea from Schopenhauer resonated most deeply with you. And remember, sometimes the secret to an easy life is not learning how to get more from the world, but learning how to ask less of it and more of yourself in the form of awareness, restraint, and understanding.